the new knowledge is produced, but at the end of the day, the lived realities of the local communities and the households remain changed. And this is where we think that co-creation plays a very important role, and it becomes extremely pertinent to include in the process of research. Now, what exactly is co-creation? It's a joint process of knowledge production, which works with professional researchers and community members together, who conduct the research, who identify the issues, who identify the tools, collect the data, do the analysis, and also disseminate the information and come up with the action plans. It helps in generating knowledge through the information and experiences of the local and social community realities. The process of co-creation actually provides innovative opportunities and creates a space for communities and researchers to work together, to act together and come up with solutions which affect the communities on everyday basis and affect their experiences. Through this process, local community members become part of the research. They frame the questions, they design the tools, they conduct the data, analyze them, and also disseminate them at household level, at community levels, and also try to engage with policymakers and people who are making decisions. And it is through this collaborative process of researcher and community that the new knowledge which is produced is actually including community voices, and it's leveraged in a way that community becomes part of this change. So now what exactly are we doing and why are we talking about this co-creation process? So let me just take you through the co-creation process that we undertook. So you might have heard about Adaptation Action Research Alliance. Adaptation Research Alliance, as part of that, as part of its micro grant, we're undertaking a project called Breaking the Vicious Cycle and planning water security in low-income urban neighborhoods through the process of co-creation. You can see the farmers screen. Now, why are we doing this project? All of us know and we've heard that global temperatures are increasing and it's impacting the water, and it's impacting how the water is being used, how the water is affecting the climate and affecting the rainfall, affecting the flood pattern in the communities. And this impact is majorly, it's on all of us, I'm sure, but the worst to get affected are the communities which are living, which are urban poor, which are living near these areas, which do not have the services, which do not get the access to the resources. And often these informal communities have to, instead of us who are leading to climate change, they are the ones who have to face the scarcity of water in the communities, because they're majorly reliant on the groundwater. And this is one of the issues which is because of the climate change, and it's climate-induced stressor that we identified when we were looking at the research which is already available. Now, what exactly we did? So the focus of this study was around water, to understand the lack of availability, to understand how the poor quality of water is, and is water hazards contributing and affecting communities through floods and in fact even droughts in the urban communities that we face. Through the process of co-creation, we wanted to understand the implications of uncertain availability and decreasing quality of water due to climate-induced impacts on the daily lives, livelihood, and health of the urban communities. And also then center this lived knowledge of risk and vulnerability in future action research so that we can inform stakeholder action towards inclusive planning for water security in low-income neighborhoods. We did this in two urban informal communities in Delhi and NCR. Delhi is the capital of India where we did, and both the communities had different settings and different contexts. Ghata is a village setup community in Gurugram, and it's called as Ghata village. The issue here is not of water. Water is being supplied here all the time. The issue is that Ghata village is known for a lake, which was a natural resource available for the community members there. But over the years, the water has just gone from there. The lake has dried up. The lake used to be it used to hold up a lot of water, and it was spread across 370 acres, which is just hardly left to a couple of acres now, one or two. And the concern is that though the water is coming in the community, the lake is being dried up. So what exactly the community is facing, what exactly the experiences community is undergoing, we wanted to understand that through this process of co-creation. The other community is a resettlement colony in Delhi, which is known as Gautampuri. And we did a short research. We tried to understand the perspectives of community members there. And we realized that this community has huge problem of wattage in terms of water quality, in terms of shortage, in terms of when it's coming and there's no fixed time for coming the water, and how actually is a fact, it is a factor of climate change. What exactly did we do would be my would I would like to share about that. So we used a range of community-based participatory tools to actually engage with the community and to understand how and what they're doing, what are their experiences. Through these art-based methods, we wanted to understand and we wanted to involve community members in their own risk and vulnerability assessment so that they can also learn to cope up with the access of water or inadequacy they have, the water shortage they're dealing with, and also help them learn the ways and identify ways by which they can restore local water bodies and harvest and do small activities like rainwater harvesting, and also become part of this co-planning with local authorities. And through this process, through the community-based planning, the data which is generated, we wanted to share it with experts in the community and experts which are actually planning the communities, and share it with them, and then produce a knowledge which is created both by the communities and the experts. Now, there were a range of methods that we use, how starting from just going in the community, exploring it with community members, understanding what are the issues, what are the resources available, understanding how the resources are divided in the community, understanding the social interactions in the community. Then we did a couple of art-based methodologies like drawing and photo voice, especially with the adolescents in the community. The idea first was to help them understand what climate change is and how they are actually also experiencing climate change in their everyday lives. When we talk about climate change, often this whole understanding of climate change is restricted to what science says about global warming. But the idea here was to understand how community is facing climate change. What is climate change for them, and how are they experiencing climate change in their everyday life? So we showed them a short video to understand what climate change was, and also encouraged them to share within the communities. They drew some posters about climate change, and climate change not just from a scientific perspective, but climate change how they were facing. So just mapping how water used to be initially. Have they seen the shortage in water? Has it increased? Has the quality of water improved, or has it decreased? So they drew posters and they shared it within the community. And this dialogue as a process of folk learning was facilitated, in which community members began to understand what climate change is. And experts also learned what it means to access quality water and how communities are dealing with this issue. We also did a small activity which is called as Photo Voice, in which community members, especially adolescents, were involved, and they visited the entire community. They clicked photographs on anything which they associated water with, and how they're storing water, how water is getting accessed, when is water available. So they clicked pictures and videos, and then once that data was generated, we did a collective analysis of what actually is happening in the community. In both the communities, we understood what is leading to water shortage. We community members understood. They came up with the findings. They analyzed the entire data which was available. We further started engaging with men and women in the community who have been living for years now, to understand what the changes they have seen over the past 20 years in the community, to map out the historical trajectory of the resources of water, how it is being used. We did a lot of group discussions with men, women separately together to understand how they are using, how what is happening in the community, what issues of water they think are relevant for the community, which they would like to talk about and share about. One interesting thing which we also did was a community mapping. So what we did was that we got experts, we got students from architecture department in Gurugram. We took them to these communities. They engaged with the community members and drew maps according to the architecture perspective, and they drew maps. And we also engaged community, and they drew maps according to what they think their community looked like and how resources were being used and ideas they had about water, experiences they had about water living in, while they were living in the community. So once the experts had their map and the community members drew their maps, we had a discussion, and this discussion actually was very interesting, where they shared how community should be planned, why this issue is being recognized, and how can community members play a role, and where community members share their lived realities and said, you know what, this is what we want, this is how the planning should be. And it was an activity where they collectively discussed about the issue, discussed about how they can actually plan communities, where they should live, what kind of communities they should live so that it does not contribute to climate change. They discussed about the issues of urbanization and how it is contributing to climate change. They shared their experiences, and this was a conversation which took place between the experts and the community members to generate and to actually co-plan this entire perspective. Um, so now, how does this really contribute to the climate adaptation? An important contribution, which we think, was to systemize participatory community-based methods to generate local knowledge, which began from the process of identifying community-based issues for action research. The idea was to also understand how can marginalized adolescent young people contribute to the local-led climate adaptation actions. In a couple of few weeks of doing this short learning process with the community, engaging them in this process, we realized that there was a lot of energy among young people and adolescents, both the communities, to take action. And in a couple of minutes, I'll also invite some adolescents to share about their experience of being part of this and what they have been doing. Adolescents, primarily adolescent girls, have been at the forefront of learning ways and trying to learn ways in which they can actually support community members to adapt behaviors and practices which can help us reduce climate change and to conserve and preserve water. The next step was to bring together communities and experts together. Organizations working around knowledge like PRIA can bring in community and experts together in a co-learning space. In this project, students of architecture, urban design, urban planning, environment health researchers tried demystifying the meaning of climate hazards and climate change to the community members, and also tried listening to community experiences and taken to the expert perspective so that they can broaden their understanding of the impact of climate change in communities' everyday life. The next very important step is, which we also would like to understand on how different organizations are doing and how it can be done, is to build connections between local governance institutions who are at the core of the decision-making process, especially in these communities, and community members, how to bring them together. We all have done this in past, and definitely we can share our experiences of how we did it. So the idea is to bring urban local poor communities who are at the impact of gotten the impact and are facing the impact of climate change with urban local governance bodies, and learn from each other and learn how can we build meaningful equitable connections between community and governance institution for long-term adaptation. So this is a small presentation about what co-creation process we undertook and how it was. I would like to share a short video of what exactly came out of and what community members had to say about water in the community. And then I would like to invite Elizabeth and Shivani and Shivangi to share what future actions the community thinks that they would like to take it forward. This video is in Hindi, but there's subtitles in English language, and you can have a look at the subtitles and just understand what actually came out of the study.
We are not able to see the video, only the audio. You're on mute.
It'll come, it'll come.
हमारी जो गौतमपुरी है इसमें पानी की काफ़ी समस्या है। सिर्फ मुझे ही नहीं, यहाँ पे हर किसी को पानी की समस्या है।
सबसे ज़्यादा पानी की समस्या है किसी कि मेरे घर में पानी नहीं है। मैं दूसरे के यहाँ से पानी भरती हूँ और पीने का वो भी मैं गंदा वो खारा पानी आता है, और पीने का पानी भी मैं किसी और के घर में से भरती हूँ।
जिस तरह से क्लाइमेट चेंज हो रहा है और जिस तरह से ग्लोबल वार्मिंग हो रही है, उस वजह से पानी में क्या असर पड़ता है, क्योंकि ये सिर्फ अर्बनाइजेशन की वजह से ही नहीं है जहाँ पानी की शॉर्टेज हो रही है। ग्लोबल वार्मिंग जिससे बारिश का कम होना, उस वजह से ये लेक्स और पॉन्ड और अंडरग्राउंड में वाटर रिचार्ज जो होता है वो भी ना होना, ये भी वाटर शॉर्टेज की समस्या का एक कंट्रीब्यूट करता है। तो इसलिए हमने सोचा कि एक पूरे तरीके से, एक होलिस्टिक तरीके से हम कम्युनिटी को कैसे बताया जाए कि वाटर शॉर्टेज का समस्या क्या है और इसका समाधान कैसे ढूंढा जा सकता है। कम्युनिटी के साथ मिलके इसका एक समाधान ढूंढने के लिए हमने ये प्रोजेक्ट शुरू किया था।
उस टाइम पे हम आए थे, उस टाइम पे यहाँ पे कुछ भी नहीं थी, खेती बाड़ी थी सिर्फ यहाँ पे। और यहाँ पे ना रोड थे, ना लाइट थी, ना पानी था। टैंकर आते थे तो एक से दूसरे पे मारी मारा टैंकर से होती थी, तो उसी समय पे हम पानी भर भर कर लेके आते।
कि कभी हमें पानी नहीं आ रहा तो हमें बाहर से जाके भरना पड़ता है, लाइनों में खड़ा होना पड़ता है, बड़ी लंबी लंबी लाइनों में। सिर्फ मुझे ही नहीं या मेरे परिवार को ही नहीं, पूरे गौतमपुरी को पानी की समस्या है। जिनके घर में मोटर्स लगी हुई हैं उनको भी है, क्योंकि पानी का कोई टाइम टेबल ही नहीं है। जिनके घर में मोटर नहीं लगी हुई उनकी भी समस्या है, क्योंकि उनके घर में पानी की मोटर नहीं है, तो उन लोगों को बाहर से भरना पड़ता है। और कभी कभार ऐसा हो जाता है कि यहाँ पे 2-2 3-3 दिन तक पानी नहीं आता, जिसकी वजह से हम लोगों को बाहर से कैंस मंगानी पड़ती हैं, और बाहर से कैंस मंगानी पड़ती है। और जब पानी मीठा पीने का भी आता है ना, वो भी यहाँ पे साफ़ पानी नहीं आता। कभी जैसे गंदा आता है, नाले का आता है, उसमें मिट्टी आती है। और कभी कभार तो ऐसा आता है कि वो पीने लायक ही नहीं रहता, उसको बॉयल भी कर लेंगे ना तो तब भी उसे कोई पी नहीं सकता।
पीने पानी का तो तुम आप पूछो ही मत। कभी 2 बजे दे देते हैं, कभी दिन में दे देंगे, तो कभी रात को दे देते हैं। पानी की इसका कोई टाइम टेबल नहीं है। पानी जैसे पैप वगैरह फट जाते हैं तो उसमें मट्टी भी आती है, कीचड़ भी आ जाती है। अगर हम लोग खोल कर देख लेते हैं नल को तो पता लगता है। अगर टंकी में डायरेक्ट जाते तो कोई पता नहीं लगता कि गंदा आ रहा है कि साफ आ रहा है। फिर उसको खोल कर देखते हैं कुछ बर्तन में लेके, तो उसमें गंदा पानी आता है, फिर हमें मोटर बंद करनी पड़ती है।
मुझे यहाँ 10 साल हो गए रहते हुए। यहाँ पे पानी बारिश के दिन में पानी बहुत ज़्यादा जम जाता है, यहाँ आदमी को आने जाने में बहुत ज़्यादा दिक्कत हो जाता है। और यहाँ पे एक झील है, वो बहुत पुराना सदियों से वो है, लेकिन वो बहुत पानी था पहले, अब तो वो सूखते जा रहा है और बहुत ख़राब हो गया वो पानी। और यहाँ पे कूड़ा कूड़ा तो बहुत ही ज़्यादा होता है, ये कहीं पे भी कूड़ा फेंक देते हैं। कुछ लोग हैं जो पानी बहुत जो जहाँ एक बाल्टी यूज़ करना होता है वहाँ 3-4 बाल्टी गिरा देते हैं, और कोई लोग हैं जो संभल के काम करते हैं, पानी कम यूज़ करते हैं, जिनको फिक्र नहीं है, पानी ज़्यादा यूज़ करते हैं। फिर जब पानी की दिक्कत होती है तब पता लगता है, फिर एक बाल्टी में ही सब काम कर पर जब बारिश होती है तो पानी बहुत ज़्यादा ही भर जाता है, जिसकी वजह से कोई काम पर नहीं जा पाता, और ना ही हमको स्कूल जाने में बहुत प्रॉब्लम होती है, और वो पानी जमकर बहुत गंदा सा हो जाता है, कीचड़ वगैरह।
बारिश हो गए तो बहुत बुरा हाल हो जाए। अब ये कम से कम अब बढ़िया 2-3 महीना से आरसी पड़ी है, तो अब देखो समाधान कैसे निकले। बल्कि नाली तो वैसे ही भरी हुई है, फुल भरी रहती है। गर्मी में मच्छर से पूरी पब्लिक परेशान है। खूब भरे रहे नाले, इनके ऊपर बाथरूम भी बने हैं, शौचालय भी करते हैं, गंदगी पूरे में फैलती है। स्कूल में बच्चे जाने के लिए परेशानी, जगह जगह पानी इकट्ठा हो जाए।
वाटर का होना किसी भी सेटलमेंट के लिए कितना जरूरी है, और द आइडिया कि हमारा जो नेचुरल फॉरेस्ट, द ग्रीन एरियाज, मतलब कि जो पेड़ पौधे हैं जो एक किसी भी सेटलमेंट के आसपास होने चाहिए, उनकी क्या अहमियत है।
टेम्परेचर तो बढ़ रहा है, बारिश कम हो रहा है, और जो क्लाइमेट चेंज की वजह से कभी कभी ऐसा होता है जिस समय पे बारिश नहीं होना है उस समय बारिश होता है, और जिस समय पे बारिश होना है उसी समय पे कम बारिश होता है। तो वेदर का सिचुएशन भी क्लाइमेट चेंज की वजह से अफेक्ट करता है। तो जब गर्मी होता है, बहुत गर्मी होता है एक समय पे, बिकॉज अरावली यहाँ पे बहुत नज़दीक है और ये अरावली और खेत के थे, तो उसी समय पे जो एक्सट्रीम क्लाइमेट जो लास्ट 5 इयर्स में देखे वो इतना नहीं देखा था, मगर अभी तो ये हो रहा है क्योंकि स्पेस कॉन्क्रीट हो रहा है, ग्रीन स्पेस कम हो रहा है। तो अभी आने वाले समय पे और जितना अर्बन डेवलपमेंट होगा, जितना पॉपुलेशन बढ़ेगा, पानी का प्रॉब्लम तो होगा।
जो पानी की समस्या धीरे धीरे बढ़ी जा रही है और पानी के हिस्सा कम हुआ जा रहा है, तो ये हमारी प्लानिंग को भी और जो वहाँ के लोग रहते हैं उन दोनों के ऊपर इफेक्ट करता है। तो वो दिक्कतें क्यों आ रही है, क्या उसमें हमारी प्लानिंग उस पर वर्क कर सकती है कि हम उस चीज़ को एक अच्छी भविष्य के लिए ले जा सके।
परिवर्तन आ चुका है क्लाइमेट चेंज से। आज की डेट में जो जल है वो बिल्कुल पीने योग्य नहीं है। जैसे हम लोग बातचीत भी कर रहे थे कि आज की डेट में जो पानी है वो बिल्कुल भी हम पी नहीं सकते। एक बिस्लरी का पानी, नॉर्मल पानी हम लोग अगर रख के देखें तो दोनों में बहुत ज़्यादा डिफरेंस दिखेगा हमें।
This was a very small video to just share with all of you what exactly issue came up. Now, I would request Elizabeth to come and share with all of us. Elizabeth has been working with Ghata community for a very long time, which is situated in Gurugram. It's one of the communities we worked in as part of the project, and to share what communities' actions are going to be in the next phase. Elizabeth, are you here?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, I think there is. Yeah, hello everyone. It was a nice opportunity to listen and hear about co-creation and then how we can learn and unlearn and especially share knowledge with each other. Climate change and its impact is a reality that we know that we are facing every day. But the concern here is that how it has been impacting all of us together, how this issue has been raised to the stakeholders level, and how community are really aware about it. This is something, a question that we need to think about it, we need to work about it. We know that the impact and the changes that people are feeling it. The first thing that the community in which I am working or we are working together, we know is that there are certain changes happening. And in the impact of the climate change, in their own words, which you will find is that the the temperature has increased, it's becoming hotter day by day, and the rainfall has lessened. And especially for the Ghata people, they know that the lake has the lake water has receded, and it's almost like now it's a place for gathering of wastewater of the village. Once upon a time, a very freshwater lake coming from the hills of the Aravalist. This is the reality that everyone in the village, and then the migrant population which have settled there and has been living there like a part of the village, they are aware about this. But the thing is that how has the initiative been taken up, and who is going to lead, and how it's going to happen? Because everybody knows of it, but the action is less taken care along with the lack of awareness. So what we have felt, and especially going through this study together, is that sorry. Yeah, that this lack of awareness, especially among 1, 2, 3 generations of that, how it's going to impact, that has not been felt as intensely as it should be felt. This is one concern that we have seen, and especially uh, the local people who are staying in the village, who are the preserver of the natural resources and their area, what kind of actions and what kind of thoughts they have delved into it. One thing we know is that a place like Gurugram is a fast developing urban place. The place where Ghata exactly was, it was surrounded by green belts and green fields. Now it is surrounded by urban concrete. And in that context, the losing of trees, even encroaching the areas of Arabali Hills, this has created some kind of a flux in the natural process of preserving water. According to what we have heard from the community village people, we have seen that the ground of water has receded by maybe like 100 meters below the ground. But for this, why is the groundwater receding? In order not to recede the groundwater, how to restore water? Has this conversation started at the village level? We seem to see that at the community level, such action prompto has not been taken together, because everybody is taking a part and parcel of the urban development of getting more and more financial resources, ignoring this side. They left it to the government that if any action can be taken. But at the community level, their own wells are being dried up. This is an example that we have seen in Ghata village. So one thing what we need to do as an immediate step is that first building that the receding water resources, the impact of climate change, and what the action that we are leading is leading to climate change. How, according to the things that we have seen, and how is it as it is today, it has remained at this circumstance, what kind of intervention level can be done? This is something that we need to talk, intervene with the community leaders of the village people, and the municipal level people, and at the level is the state level, because this is something. If we were looking at the video and you were showing some pictures about the Ghata Lake area, the green belt has reduced to a more concretized building structure, and nearby the building structure, how many greens are revived, or how many replantation has occurred, or how many plants that can uh, preserve water, how this has been felt, how much thought has been given by the municipality, by the state government. This is something that we need to do. Along with that, alternative resources for usage of water. Along with the pipe water, the boring water, how about the rain harvesting, and how the groundwater level can be preserved? Is this kind of a process being thought, or when buildings are being constructed by the builders or by the individual households? Have they utilized any tools, mechanisms to do all these things? Because unless and until these things are being done, are ought to be done, the groundwater is going to recede, rainwater is becoming less, and the population is going to grow more and more. So what kind of impact it is going to have? Maybe at this level, people are not maybe aware to that extent, but awareness and revivalism, so that the regressive way, how we can we can again regain it in a progressive way. The green belt, the conservation, the water uses, soils, as well as the community level. What can be done? This is something that we need to stick forward. And in the process, I'm very happy, along with PRIA, along while we're conducting the training programs, at least the youths are being made aware of the seriousness of the issue and how water is going to be a big problem in the future. Thank you, Nikita.
Thank you. I would like to invite Shivangi and Shivani to
Yes.
share. So Shivani and Shivangi will be talking in Hindi and sharing their experience in Hindi, but I'll help you understand what they're saying. तो शिवानी एंड शिवांगी क्या आप आके हमारे साथ शेयर करेंगे कि आफ्टर दिस प्रोसेस, इस लर्निंग प्रोसेस के बाद आप लोगों ने कम्युनिटीज में क्या करना शुरू किया एंड क्या स्टेप्स आप अपने लेवल पे ले रहे हैं, कैसे आपने शेयर किया कम्युनिटी मेंबर्स के साथ. तो नाउ शिवांगी विल बी शेयरिंग विद अस अबाउट व्हाट काइंड ऑफ स्टेप्स दे आर टेकिंग इन द कम्युनिटी after this process and how they are actually motivating community members or sharing about their understanding. So yes.
यस मैम, हमने उस दिन से सबको बताया कि जितने पानी की जरूरत है उतना पानी यूज करें और ज्यादा पानी वेस्ट ना करें, क्योंकि पानी बहुत सी जगहों पे नहीं मिल पा रहा है. तो वो आधे लोग तो मान चुके हैं और आधे से ज्यादा लोग तो और ज्यादा वेस्ट करते हैं. तो हमने सोचा था, मैम ने हमें अपनी आईडी दिया था, हमने मैम को मैसेजेस भी किए बट मैम ने देखे नहीं. और जितने जरूरत होता है उतना करें और फालतू पानी वेस्ट ना करें. और जो कचरा है वो कचड़े में उसमें फेंके. तो अपने से बड़ों को भी बताया और अपने साथ वालों को भी बताया और हम भी वही करते हैं. और हमने बहुत सारे पौधे भी लगाए, स्कूल में भी लगाए थे. हमने अपने सारे फ्रेंडों को बताया कि पानी वेस्ट नहीं करें और अपने तरफ के लोगों को भी बोले कि पानी वेस्ट ना करें, जितने पानी का इस्तेमाल करना है उतना पानी लें और ज्यादा से ज्यादा पानी की बचत करना सीखें.
Okay, so I'll just tell you what both of them shared. So they've started informing community members, their parents, elders in the community, the neighbors, people in their school, to how they can actually not contribute, what actions they should take so that it does not contribute to climate change, like how water should be used and how can they use tap water, how can they reduce the usage of water, how should the sanitation practices be. Because one of the issues which came was that because people throw litter all around during the rainfall, waterlogging takes place. It also contributes the harmful energies and are released in the environment, and it also impacts the health of the community members. So शिवानी एंड शिवांगी, क्या आप ये भी बताओगे कि जो ये प्रोसेस था जिसमें आपने ड्राइंग्स बनाई, आपने पिक्चर्स क्लिक करी, वो प्रोसेस से आपने अगर कुछ सीखा एंड हाउ डिड यू, और आपने कैसे कम्युनिटी मेंबर्स के साथ शेयर किया?
मतलब है कि आपने जो सीखा गया है ना, तो जिसमें कम्युनिटी में आके मतलब है कि जो बात बताई गई कि क्लाइमेट चेंज की वजह से क्या क्या हुआ, जिस दिन राम से भी आके जो सिखाई गई थी, तो ये सबको इसके बारे में तुम लोगों ने कम्युनिटी से मतलब क्या पता चला, क्या सीखा?
हमें पता चला कि हमारे घाटा गांव में पहले बहुत पानी था, हरियाली बहुत थी और सारी हरियाली मतलब धीरे धीरे खत्म हो रही है. पेड़ काटे जा रहे हैं और पानी दूषित हो रहा है और घाटा गांव पूरा गंदा हो रहा है. उसमें सब कचरा फेंक रहे हैं इधर उधर. कचरा कचरे की जगह पे नहीं डाल रहे हैं. और हमारे यहाँ पे बहुत सारी जगह खाली पड़ी हुई है, वहाँ घर भी नहीं बने हैं. और झील का पानी भी बहुत गंदा हो गया है. पहले झील में बहुत सारा पानी भी था और झील का पानी साफ भी था, अब बहुत दूषित हो गया है उसका पानी भी. और यहाँ घाटा गांव में बहुत सारी बिल्डिंग्स भी बन गई हैं.
Okay, thank you. So we asked them the question that how this co-creation process help them in understanding about the issue and also help them in taking it forward to the community members. So over this process, they realized that the green cover area has reduced and even the water is being contaminated. Initially, they were not very they were not very concerned about the Ghata Lake and the why water is being dried up there. So they understood about that process. They understood how the water level is reducing in the community and reducing in that Ghata Lake, and also tried sharing with the community member different practices and try to understand climate change from their everyday experiences. Over the time, when they interacted with the community members and the elders, they realized that how this shift in water and the usage of water is being taking place. Also, very interestingly, how water, looking at this issue from a gender perspective, which I initially didn't mention, that how women and men are using water, what impacts they are having on their health and how it is being taking place. Thank you, Shivani and Shivangi, हम सबके साथ share करने के लिए. And the whole idea here is that it is very important when we talk about climate change to bring communities in this process of learning and to include them as part of it so that they can actually demystify the expert knowledge and demystify whatever is happening in the contemporary society and actually implement it, understand it from their perspective and do something about it. Elizabeth, would you like to add anything else before we end?
Yeah, just wanted, like, from the thing that we have seen is that, yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I think, okay.
We can hear you. Elizabeth, are you here? Elizabeth, are you here? I think there's some issue with her network. We'll wait for a minute for her to join in. In the meantime, I would just like to say that, and that's the whole idea. If you would like to know more about the co-creation process and how we're doing, please, you can get in touch with us. I'll share the website link with us and you can write to us to understand about this process. And if you have any questions, you can just please put it in the Q&A box. If you have any comments, anything else, you can raise your hand and or put it in the chat box. It was great to be here and be able to share this experience with all of you. And thank you very much for listening to us so patiently. I hope this information helps you. My colleague has just put in the website link. And yes, you can access it. You can just click on it, go through the website. If there's any information which is not clear to you, you can get back to us. We'll just wait for Elizabeth to join in and then we can maybe add. Elizabeth, are you here? You're on mute.
Yeah, sorry, I think the sudden like network slowed down. So I'll just switch off my video so that you can hear properly. Yeah, can you hear me, Nikita?
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Okay. So one thing that we have seen is that while community intervention sometimes, which we are not, because through this process of co-creation, which for me, it is also a learning lesson, is that when it comes to community holdings and then community land use, and in this pattern of community sharing, what we have seen is that maybe the land use pattern, especially in urban developed areas, we need to relook into it also, because sometimes we can face some unforeseen like challenges, like because some government areas are being occupied by the village people and they have built house structures and renting it, and whatever water resources or other water related resources that they are using are not being used legally. So how far this is going to have, this has a larger impact, we need to look into it. But one thing what we have seen is that the people in the Ghata village, that about this issue which were not being talked or like directly related with, we have started talking through this process with the village people, and how they are made aware that a kind of a study or a kind of this water issue is also being studied at the village level. The local village people came to know aware about it. But there is a challenge that we need to pull in together, because there are different stakeholders, there are different interest groups, that how we can pull the human resources together to work together through networking as well as to relationship building. This will need to look into it, because the interest holders coming into a common platform for common preservation of the natural resources is very, very important. Thank you, Nikita.
Thank you very much, and thank you for highlighting this. I would also like to say that in the next steps, where we're actually working with some environment research institutions to help us develop communication, open communication material which can be shared with the community, which mixes both communities and experts' perspectives and ideas about climate change, and so that we can take it forward. And as Elizabeth said, we would like to now hold some conversations with stakeholders who are the decision-making part, to talk to them about climate change, because clearly this is not one of the issues which is still being considered, especially at the local levels with the communities who are actually being impacted by them. I think the video was hanging in between, but definitely in a couple of few days, we'll be putting this video on our YouTube channel and on our website. You can have the access to it. Thank you very much, ICAT team, for this opportunity to be able to share with all of our participants. And yes, that's it from our side. Thank you very much.